Hey Tiger friends, it's Meredith with Tiger Lily Resources, and I am back for an update of the follow-up to the last video that I had with the title of $8 million budget. So we're going to go a little further into my discoveries. So a little recap of that. That was in regards to the National Human Trafficking Hotline and the Polaris Project. The Polaris Project is the primary organization that powers the National Human Trafficking Hotline. So the purpose of that hotline is a phone number that has been highly promoted, highly publicized as the go-to number that you can call or text into for reporting possible and potential human traffic victims, or for victims to call in themselves to get connected with proper authorities or get connected with local services that can help them as quickly as possible. And the Polaris Project is the go-to source in the country for research, data, statistics, reports, all of that. And on the Human Trafficking Hotline's website, there was a disclosure that said how they were funded, where about 70-something% was government funding and the other 20-something% was from private funding. It made me want to know more. So, I have two different details. I have details of numbers and I have details of stories, and I'm going to try to keep this as succinct as possible so it's not too long and I don't ramble and we don't go off on any rabbit trails, because I'm going to try to stick to the facts and hopefully leave my emotion out of this, which might be a little bit hard. Okay, so why I was trying to contact the hotline and Polaris in the first place is I was trying to find a current report for statistics and numbers, as close to exact numbers as possible, of how many beds there are currently in the United States that are specifically for serving survivors of human trafficking. Not blended beds, like not a homeless shelter, not a recovery service, but specifically a trauma-based healing home residential program that for beds designated to survivors. Okay. So I went on Polaris because they are the go-to for details and research like that. I went there after I had called originally to the Human Trafficking Hotline a few weeks ago, spoke with somebody and told her what I was looking for. And somebody was either supposed to call me back or send me an email back with the information. Well, that was at least 2 weeks ago, probably more, and I haven't heard anything back. So I went on the Polaris site to look for myself, and the most recent report that I could find was from October of 2013, and that's almost 10 years old. Okay. And I was a little miffed once I found out that they were operating on what I thought was an $8 million budget. That's just for the trafficking hotline. The Polaris Project, that is the data recording, researching element, they have a different budget. Okay. So, but I was thinking, I was like, okay, under the impression that they were operating on an $8 million budget, that I would think that if they had that for operations, they could be a little bit more current with their reporting, especially with something like that, especially when knowing that's the need all the time. It's always a struggle to find places to place survivors for healing. That's always the issue. So I text back in to the trafficking hotline asking my request. I really got nowhere with it. I called in to Polaris yesterday, which was April 28th, 2022. And this is what happened.
Hello, you've reached Polaris. We are currently experiencing some technical difficulties with our phone system and appreciate your patience. Please leave a detailed message along with your contact information, and a staff member will reach back out to you. Thank you and have a great day.
And then I also called back today, which is Friday, April 29th, 2022. And this is what happened.
Hello, you've reached Polaris. We are currently experiencing some technical difficulties with our phone system and appreciate your patience. Please leave a detailed message along with your contact information, and a staff member will reach back out to you. Thank you and have a great day.
Sorry, mailbox is full. To send an SMS notification, press 5.
So again, I would think with a budget like they have, the phones would be quite the necessity to not have malfunction. Okay, they'd be able to fix that. So I continue. So that happens. So I also called into the Missouri Attorney General's office, because knowing Missouri better than any other state as far as services go for traffic victims, and knowing that the Attorney General's office is where nonprofits get registered through to get the approval for solicitation of funds in any given state, and also knowing that the Attorney General has an initiative for human trafficking. So I called them and I was like, hey, I talked to the woman who specifically puts that information through. And I was like, hey, we're working on a project. Just wondering if you might have in your database this information. And she was very helpful, but she also said that basically she has a database. It's not a public database, and it's pretty much just all of the nonprofits. They're not categorized, they're not sectioned. So I would, if she shared that, which she didn't, which is fine because it didn't fit what I needed. But if she shared it, I would have to sift through thousands and thousands of nonprofits to find out who is the human trafficking services and then contact them myself. That would take eons forever, right? So they don't have documentation of it. So basically the two largest entities that are directly tied to helping and aiding service providers and survivors of human trafficking, they don't have proper information. I dug deeper. So I'm now on the Polaris website, and I think I'm going to start with numbers first. Okay, so on a nonprofit, whenever you file your annual reports to the IRS, it's not necessarily filing taxes like a business or a person would. You file a report, and that report tells what your income is, what your expenses are, what are your program expenses, operational expenses, your salary expenses, where did your funding come from, was it government, was it private, who are the donors. It basically just breaks down the whole blueprint for what your organization is. So I went to another website that's called GuideStar, and that houses all of the nonprofits and their reports. It's a great platform for other funders. They can actually just go there and look up an organization that they are considering giving a substantial, gift or grant to, or they can go there and look for ministries or organizations that fit what they want to give to. They can search that way. So I went on there and I went to Polaris Project, and I was looking for their 990, and their 2020 report is not online yet, and it really should be. It could be. Even if they ask for an extension, it's still time for the 2020 report to be on there. But it's not. That's okay, whatever. So I went to the 2019 report, and I pulled up, and I'm just going to throw out some numbers. Again, I'm not going to dwell too much on this part of the intricacies of it, but it's going to make a point. Okay, so in 2019, their overall contributions and grants totaled for the current year $14,439,979, $14.4 million intake to the entire Polaris. That's not the section for the National Human Trafficking Hotline. Part of that goes to them. Okay. Then I looked at their total revenue again. 14 million. Okay. Their total expenses were about 11,900,000. Going into 2019, so ending 2018, they ended the year with a $5 million surplus, which usually you're supposed to use the money that you get in. You're supposed to. That's kind of rule of thumb. Not necessarily always the case, but 5 million is kind of a lot, I think, to carry over into a year. So they carried in the 5 million, they brought in 14 million, and then they ended 2019 with 7.9 million going into 2020. Again, Polaris Report is the go-to organization for data, reports, research, and all of that. Okay, continue. I looked up, I wanted to see, how much from 2019 was government grants. 2.7 million from government grants. So the remaining of that was 11.7 in private funding. So I was interested to know who was their private funders, who's funding them. So I went to there's a Schedule B that is a part of the report when you make your tax report. And Schedule B is your breakdown of who your donors are. I think if it's anybody over like a $5,000 donation, you have to itemize who is that donor, an individual. Okay. Well, their Schedule B for 2019, it just says restricted. They don't disclose who their donors are. So I went back to 2018. 2018, Schedule B is not even there. And 2017, Schedule B is not even there. So 17, 18, and 19, they do not disclose who their private donors are. They do show that they do get federal funding from the government. So I went a little further, and I just want to put in a cute little point of interest. Their mailing address, even on their taxes and also on their website, is a P.O. Box. And their mailing address is P.O. Box 65323, Washington, D.C., 20035. Okay. Leave that little tidbit there. So they are up in D.C. Okay, so a couple other points that I want to bring to the forefront. And anything that I reference, I will put a link for the wherever it's at, or I'll put pictures in the comments, or if it depends on if you're watching it in a place where you can see comments or descriptions. Okay. When I went onto their website to look again to see if I just possibly missed the newest updated report of how many beds there are currently in the United States of America, I went to their resources tab under human trafficking, and an article caught my attention. It's not an article, it's more of a report. It's 21 pages, and I will include all of this. But the title that caught my attention as well is Countering QAnon, Understanding the Role of Human Trafficking in the Disinformation Extremist Nexus. Isn't that cute? Okay, that caught my attention. Next, go scroll down a little bit. There's a picture of a laptop that's open on a table. The screen is on, but the screen is broken. It's a little digital, and it's in a dark room. And the caption under the picture says, in the wake of the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol, Polaris, in partnership with the Sufan Group and Limbic, has written a report that sheds light on previously unexplored links between QAnon, human trafficking, disinformation, and violent extremism. That really caught my attention. Why would January 6th or QAnon be mentioned on a anti-human trafficking, national anti-human trafficking organization's website? I don't believe that's really the place for that, but it really caught my attention. So again, like I said, I will include the 21-page report article in here. I read it. I was fuming. I was jaw-dropped and I popped literally every paragraph I read. Polaris claims to be a nonpartisan, non-governmental organization, but by their dialogue and their vocabulary, I don't know how they can claim that. They reference all the right words. Insurrection, white supremacist, racial tensions. They mention Jeffrey Epstein. They mention Wayfair. They mention Ashley Babbitt. They mention things that in my deepest heartfelt conviction should never be on a national anti-human trafficking organization's website, the largest national anti-human trafficking organization's website. So their key findings in that 21-page article are as follows. There's 5 bullet points. Disinformation about human trafficking services as a gateway narrative that radicalizes susceptible audiences to condone and even perform acts of violence and terrorism. This ultimately poses a threat to the national security of the United States. 2. The fallout from disinformation about human trafficking has a profoundly harmful impact on victims and survivors of human trafficking. The amount of time Polaris spent responding to false reports about the Wayfair conspiracy theory could have been used to respond to an additional 42 trafficking cases. Point 3. A significant portion of the U.S. population is susceptible to being radicalized. 21% of U.S. adults identify as QAnon believers. and 41% of U.S. adults believe that elites, politicians, and or celebrities are involved in global pedophile rings. In spite of deplatforming efforts by social media companies, white supremacist and other violent far-right extremist groups on encrypted chat platforms are using human trafficking disinformation as a way to recruit disillusioned QAnon followers to join their movements. Point 5. A coordinated multi-stakeholder effort is needed to develop and implement strategies to impart the truth about human trafficking in a way that is compelling to both susceptible audiences and to audiences already convinced of the false narrative. Okay, in the intro of the 21-page article, I will read just a couple pieces of it. I'll just read it. It's 3 paragraphs and they're very short. Okay. On January 6, 2021, a violent mob launched a deadly siege on the U.S. Capitol with the stated purposes of disrupting the final official certification of Joseph R. Biden Jr. as the winner of the 2020 presidential election. Among the indelible images of that terrifying day were totems of hate desecrating one of democracy's sacred spaces, gallows and a noose, a flag representing a fictional white supremacist nation, a sweatshirt reading Camp Auschwitz. As the picture of the January 6th attack comes into focus, it is clear that while many attendees were animated by these expressions of hate, the reality is far more complicated. While hate certainly played a role in drawing many to the event, there was another far more benevolent force that attracted others, a concern, albeit fueled by false narratives and conspiracy theories, for the safety of children. Many of those who gathered at the Capitol, armed, angry, and dangerous, were followers of QAnon, a movement of individuals dedicated to spreading insidious conspiracy theories. QAnon's central premise is that a global cabal of Satan-worshipping pedophiles in the Democratic Party and Hollywood elite form the core of a transnational sex trafficking ring, and that Donald Trump is the prophet who is leading the fight against this. This is on their website. On GuideStar, the website that I told you that all nonprofits are listed on Polaris Project's page, you can actually see reviews from people about them. And a donor gave a review on June 6th, 2021. And he said, I was a monthly donor until recently when the organization began publicizing political propaganda instead of working on their mission. I don't need my money going to a political organization. Most recently, they tried to convince people that open borders do not increase human trafficking. Zero common sense there. Final straw for me. I don't disagree with him.
Now let's talk about the damage being done to the United States of America. Mr. Secretary, do you know what this is? This is a mobile morgue, a body trailer, needed by counties in South Texas overwhelmed by dead migrants. That particular trailer is filled with these bodies, 27 bodies that were stored in this mobile morgue.
Defend the poor and fatherless. Do justice to the afflicted and needy. Deliver the poor and needy. Rid them out of the hand of the wicked.
How about the little girl here with a brand on her arm? A little girl with a brand on her arm because of your policies. A little girl here in the desert found by ranchers trying to save their life. And how about the lost voices for people dying from fentanyl? The tens of thousands of Americans dying from fentanyl. Faces of Americans across this country dying because of fentanyl pouring into our country.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
You know full well.
Time of the gentleman has expired, Ms.
Encouraging people to come here, harming Texas and harming this country. You know it, and you're ignoring
the time of the gentleman has expired. He no longer has time to slander the secretary.
The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer, my God, my strength, in whom I will trust, my buckler and the horn of my salvation and my high tower.
So that was a few things that I found in just the article. Another couple things that I do want to share. I will be sharing a link for a link to NPR, and there's like a 4-minute dialogue between the host, I forgot the name of what her title is. I will find it though, because I'm pulling it up right now. Okay, here we go. Extremism expert. Yes, Odette Youssef with NPR. Extremism experts worry a QAnon theory is making its way into the mainstream political right. Again, this is on their Facebook page. Okay, so in this 4-minute interview, I just pulled out 3 excerpts from it. One is from the first one is from the host, Miss Snell. And she says, the confirmation hearings, this is how she starts the segment that is on this NPR site, that is on the Polaris Project's Facebook page, that has the CEO of Polaris Project on here. Okay. The host of the show starts with, the confirmation hearings of Supreme Court nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson have many asking why some Republican senators dwelled on her sentencing record in a small number of child pornography cases. As if one wasn't enough. They dwelled on a small number of child pornography cases. Jackson's critics accused her of choosing more lenient sentences than the maximum punishment allowed. But extremism experts took it as a sign that a baseless QAnon narrative is creeping into the mainstream political right. NPR Odette Youssef is covering this, and she joins me now. So they go on a little bit longer, and this is kind of towards the end of it. They were referring to something else, not to the Ketanji Brown Jackson nomination, and hence acceptance. She goes on to say, I spoke with Catherine Chen. She's the CEO of the Polaris Project, which is a national anti-trafficking organization. She says the spread of this disinformation and these conspiracy theories have harmed real efforts to address the issue. You know, Kelsey, that's the host, Kelsey Snell. There have been these viral claims about supposed techniques that traffickers use to lure and snatch women off the streets. All of them false. And Chen says that this is complicated work on the ground. This is complicated. No, Chen says that this is complicated work on the ground. Okay. Catherine Chen says, it is already extraordinarily challenging for the anti-trafficking community, for law enforcement, for community members, for family members, to help somebody understand the course of relationships that they might be in. It's much harder if what you're seeing on TikTok or on Instagram or, other social media channels are those extreme ideas that conspiracy theorists are putting out there about what trafficking actually looks like. Well, Miss Chen, that's what we're going to do with Traffic Stop. We're going to discover what human trafficking really looks like from the people who actually touch and see it straight from their mouths. I also wanted to share a little fun fact. Not only is Polaris Project located in Washington, D.C., but the Polaris CEO was just named. There was an article from March 17th of 2022, which was just over a month ago. Polaris CEO named to Homeland Security Advisory Council. That's a fun fact. So, I'm going to keep my emotions out of this as much as possible. I am going to put the links for you to read and see and listen to the things that I found. But understand that I just discovered that the go-to anti-human trafficking organizations, Polaris Project, Data and Research, National Human Trafficking Hotline and Resources, those two do not speak a nonpartisan language. They are located in Washington, D.C. They are funded by the government. And the CEO is on the Homeland Security Advisory Council. Let's connect those dots. I'm not going to dwell on it too much longer unless the Lord just pulls me back to it. There are some things I'm going to look into a little bit more. I am going to make a request of their 990s, the donors. I want to see who is funding this organization, because follow the money, right? Okay, so this is Meredith with Tiger Lily Resources, and I'm signing off.
The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness is not overcome it.